All right, here we are. That was me coughing in the background. I apologize for that. Thank you, everybody else, for being professional and quiet. I was not. Hey, it's serverless office hours, and I'm super glad to be here. My name is Eric Johnson. If you've never watched this, we're glad to have you here. This is where we talk about all things serverless. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, very honestly, and that is obviously local development, but serverless, but Sam and LocalStack, and I mean, I'm super excited. I could keep going on. I don't want to steal all the thunder, but I'm excited to be here. I want to introduce my guests real quick. I'm just going to kind of go around in a circle here, and let's go ahead and an echo here, so let's make sure we're muted there. And Perna, I'm going to start with you. First of all, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to say first and last name, and you let me know how close I come on a 1 to 10, okay? So, Perna Chowdhury.
I'll say you were 10 on 10, Eric.
What's up? Tell us what you do, who you do it for, and what you're doing here.
Yep. First of all, thank you so much, Eric, for inviting us to the session. Hi, everyone. My name is Prerna, and I'm part of the Lambda product team. My focus area is on improving the developer experience for serverless developers. How do I make it easier for developers to build, test, and productionize their serverless application? So I'm really excited for today's session and happy to hear your thoughts.
Excellent. Okay, now we're going to switch it up and step away from AWS for a moment here and go to LocalStack. And Joel, I'm going to start with you. First of all, let me try it again. Now, we tried it earlier, and I think I destroyed it, but here we go. Joel Scheuner.
8 from 10. Yeah, closer.
Right, okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Joel Scheuner, senior software engineer at LocalStack. Excited to share what my team has built. At LocalStack, I've been working with and everything around Lambda, on the Lambda implementation in LocalStack, event source mappings, pipes, and my team also maintains other services like step functions. We've partnered with AWS, and yeah, really excited to demo and show what we've built and how we've made the IDE experience within the AWS toolkit much nicer to work together with LocalStack.
That's amazing. Now tell us where you are chiming in from here.
I'm calling in from Switzerland, so southern Switzerland. It's nice and warm here.
Right on. Nice. Very cool. All righty. And we're going to move around again with LocalStack to Peter. I can say this, Peter Smith. Nailed it. Peter, tell us who you are. Oh, come on. That was right.
It depends on where you're from, right? As a Canadian or American, you say Peter. And New Zealand, where I am right now, I say Peter.
Okay, Peter. Gotcha. Peter. All righty. Okay.
I lived in Canada for 30 years, so now I just say Peter all the time.
Fair enough.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a regular viewer. I pop up a lot on the comments, as you probably know. I'm technical product manager here at LocalStack, and I'm actually probably the most remote employee. Most employees at LocalStack are based in Europe, and I am in New Zealand, which is the polar opposite side of the world. And I joined about 8 months ago, and I've had a ton of fun working with the team, just building great products. My focus is on developer experience, so we're going to show you some of the cool things we're doing today.
All right, super excited about that. Yeah, Peter, obviously longtime supporter, and we do see you a lot. Very fun. And finally, Sridhar Pandey. All right, okay. I'm
looking at you got it.
Okay. Sridhar, tell us who you are, what you do.
Hey folks, happy to be back here. I'm becoming a regular here now. Eric, I might shoot for your chair one day.
You can have it.
Hey folks, so I'm a part of the Lambda product management team. Here I lead developer experience, observability, and operational tooling, which includes integrations with third-party vendors. And I've been with AWS and Lambda for a little over 4.5 years now, and we've been doing a lot of fun things on developer experience. So today we are here to talk about something, something really cool, and has been a great partnership with the LocalStack folks so far. So I'll not spoil anybody's thunder. I will just let this go on. Thank you.
All right. So before we show the stuff, right? I want to talk about a few things really quick. Now, I've been building serverless since the day serverless came around, right? I remember, oh man, I remember the initial building and how you did it. But one of the things that we get asked for a lot, and one we get asked about, maybe not about why, when, what, where, is this idea of local development, local testing, local whatever. Why is that important? Who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump into that one. I mean, there are three reasons that I've noticed that are really, really important. I mean, the first one is security-related friction. Second one is predictable cost. And the third one is just efficiency. So talk about the security friction. I mean, security is super important in the cloud. I mean, we all know it's priority zero. You have to have your IAM policies correct. You have to have your security groups correct. You have to test everything. You have to write secure code before you push anything to the cloud. But let's face it, I mean, as developers, it can be a lot of friction, right? I mean, if you want to write your code, you just want to write your code. You want to get it working. You don't want to have to worry about your IAM policies working correctly. And I think we've all been there where you deploy something to cloud and it fails. You're like, oh, what went wrong? You spend some time debugging and you realize you got your IAM policy wrong. You have to go fix it, try again, and so on. So by testing locally, we remove all that risk. There is no risk of running on your local machine. You're not in the cloud anymore, right? So you don't have to worry about security. So we, by default, actually turn off security, right? You can turn it on again, of course. That's really important. But we turn it off by default so you can focus on that really fast iteration of getting your code written. Now, one really important case is for those of you who work in the healthcare or finance, you really appreciate this. You store personal information in the cloud. So security is really, really important for those industries. So if you're a developer in one of those companies, you probably have restrictions on what you can do in the cloud. You may be told that you have to run every change through your tests, through your security scan before it can go to the cloud. That can be like a 15-minute turnaround time every time you make a code change. And that's pretty painful. So with local emulation, you can turn that off and just really quickly iterate. But then, of course, turn on security before you deploy, because you do want to know if it's going to work or not in the cloud. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is predictable cost. As you know, in the cloud, you pay by what you use, and that makes perfect sense. Big companies should pay for using millions of Lambda functions. Of course they should. But there's always that concern you have of, oh, what if I leave something running on the weekend? Or what if I have an infinite loop where I accidentally fire off, millions of Lambda invocations by mistake? And oh my gosh, my manager's going to be giving me a hard time about that. So by running locally, we guarantee a fixed cost. Now, LocalStack is free for a certain number of services, and there are predictable paid tiers where you know exactly how much you're going to be paying every month. So that removes a lot of that risk and concern that your manager probably has.
Yeah.
Third reason is just efficiency. I mean, we are local. Everything's on your local machine. Everything's done in memory. Eventual consistency isn't something we worry about like you do in the cloud. So just deploying a CloudFormation stack is a lot faster than it is if you do it in the cloud. So those are the three big reasons.
And if I could add some more color to it, so I think those are great reasons. And I think what makes it more interesting in context of serverless is that with Lambda and with serverless services, you can move fast, and that's one of the things that developers have come to appreciate the most. You pay what you see what you pay for what you use, and also you can move fast. But when it comes to building complex applications, you want to avoid all the pitfalls that Peter just described. And while over the years we have made it super easy for developers to go build things out, we did hear that, hey, there is still a place and time for local development, and that's one area where we would want things to get better, and that's kind of what led us to this. Yeah,
and that makes a ton of sense. Like I said, I've been building this forever, and I've if you followed my history and my talkings, I was like, oh, test in the cloud, test in the cloud, test in the cloud, test in the cloud. It's all I've ever been saying forever. But we finally hit this reality. We've done a lot of good work around that with Sam Sync and different things like that. But when reality really kind of sets in, it's like, look, I just want a quick sanity check locally without a lot of effort. How can I do that locally? And obviously, this is a great answer. And we have some emulators, but then you get into how do I talk to other services? How do I locally really quickly emulate DynamoDB? And all of a sudden, we're trying to build a lot of that out, but somebody's already doing that. So
keep up with the emulators, right? Keeping up with the emulators is not, if you're using some kind of interface emulator or any emulator, you got to own that. Some service is not going to automatically come and patch it for you. I think that has been historically a challenge, even for folks that are good at doing all of that. They still have to go maintain those things, and then there's always compatibility issues and so on.
So I'm going to interrupt real quick. I guess interrupt myself here. We've got some conversation going on, and we're going to come back to this. I just want our audience to know this. We have some conversation going on around LocalStack, the paid edition, and the community edition. So I'm going to have one of you all talk to that in a little bit. So kind of prepare for that. But before we do that, I want to get into so it's a good segue, Sridhar, that when what you just said is. There's this idea of, okay, maybe at Amazon, could we build emulators and stuff? Well, we're building the actual products and stuff. And so there's not always this time to do that. So how did this LocalStack and AWS Serverless how did this partnership come around? What caused it?
Well, I'll start with that one because the other news is I actually was a principal engineer at AWS last year on the Step Functions team. So about last July, I think it was, we were getting ready to, we're working on the JSON and variables feature that launched at reInvent. I know, Eric, you're a big fan of those. It really fundamentally changed the way that you would write a step function state machine. Yeah. So we realized at the time, oh my gosh, people are going to want to emulate this locally. I mean, we changed the language that you're using. If you can't test locally, that's a real problem. So we did have our own emulator, Step Functions Local, but we also looked around and said, you know what? LocalStack is doing a great job. Remember, I'm an AWS employee saying this at this point in time. I said, LocalStack is doing great. I checked it out. I looked on the code base. It looked pretty solid. And then I reached out to the team and I said, hey, would you guys like to do a co-launch with us? Would you like to launch JSON and variables at the same time we do? I think it was November 29th, right before reInvent. The team took on the challenge and we worked together for like 3 or 4 months and they delivered a really solid version of JSON and variables in the Step Functions emulator. So that was my involvement. And I think, Sridhar, you had a slightly different story that happened at reInvent.
Yeah. So at last reInvent, I can't remember, was it Tuesday or one of the earlier days, Monday or Tuesday. And I was between two, customer meetings and I was kind of running as we all do at reInvent.
Yes.
And this we had been briefly talking about a bunch of different things we could do to simplify serverless, local testing. And then LocalStack was on my radar, but we hadn't looked into it a whole lot. And then I see someone wearing a LocalStack t-shirt, and then I just walked up to, turned out it was Waldemar, who is here in the audience. I walked up to him, I tapped on his shoulder, and I was like, hey, we got to chat. I am running late for a meeting. Here is my number. I don't remember if I gave him my number or he gave me his number. One of us gave each other the number, gave the other the number. And then we met a couple times over the course of that week. And we kind of nailed down the idea that we got to do something to basically bring these two cool things together. And that's where it started. And then after that, we had a bunch of discussions. We've been meeting pretty frequently, and here we are.
That's awesome. Perna, do you have anything you want to add on this? I'm just kind of throwing you out there. I know you did a lot of work on this. What's your favorite part of it so far? Now, don't give away any secrets yet.
I think the favorite part of this project was that we, apart from the experience that we were thinking of to build for the users, which we launched, we also simplified the setup experience and had that inside the extension, in the LocalStack extension. So basically now it's an end-to-end story for a developer who is starting in the toolkit in VSCode, where they can just start with installing LocalStack, have the entire flow of a guided experience of installing it through the extension, which Joel will show it in the demo. and then start using the cool VSCode features to ideate in the IDE. And the idea was that the developer stays in the IDE throughout the cycle of local testing and debugging their serverless application.
So just to give a little background on that, Perna, who how long have you been here now?
4 months.
Okay, so this is one of the first projects, and someone said, well, you should talk to Eric, and the poor girl had to talk to me. And how many times did I say, like, it has to be transparent, it has to be easy, man? She's like, okay, I get it. And then I go, hey, do you know it has to be transparent? It has to be transparent. It has to be as simple as possible. Okay, have a good day. Hey, did you hear what I said? I mean, I drove her nuts with this, and boy, she was awesome. She listened to what we were saying, and the teams did, and so super cool. So all right, so enough about that. Now I'm going to throw this up here. Some of you, I don't know if you've ever met Julian Wood, kind of a new up and coming star in the serverless space.
Who's that?
Cut all his hair off. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, he's now we're basically twins again. So, but Julian's usually the host of the show, and he's been playing around with this quite a bit. He's really blown away with it. I've been on this crazy kind of tour, and I haven't had a chance to play with it as much as I have, but I have been digging into it and looking at how it's done, and I'm super impressed. So, okay, so I've talked enough. So what we want to do is I want to get into, first of all, let's talk about the feature. And I don't know, Joel, if you want to kind of run with this for a moment and talk about the feature itself, then of course we're going to get into a demo.
Yeah, right. So the big launch was last week, and the initial feature, so the AWS toolkit had a feature request that was like upvoted a lot. It's one of the most popular feature requests. People wanted to have an easy way to connect their IDE to LocalStack. And last week's launch, we brought in support into the AWS toolkit for LocalStack via an easy way that people can just toggle via a switch between their production environment, between their staging environment, and between their LocalStack local environment to iterate fast. So that's the first part that we launched. Second part is the Lambda debugging support for LocalStack. So a couple of weeks ago, the AWS Lambda team launched an amazing feature that for the first time allowed customers to connect directly into their live Lambda functions in the cloud.
Yeah.
You had it on the serverless office hours. I think it's an amazing feature. As I've seen comments and people saying, oh, wow, that's a big novelty. It was so hard to test and debug Lambdas. So there we have it. And that's a follow-up, and we wanted to make the same experience. We wanted to bring the same experience into LocalStack. It should be seamless, easy to use. And certainly, we had a couple of these features already built into LocalStack, but they were not seamless. They were hard to use, and that's where we made a big step forward with the partnership and this launch to make it really easy and integrated for the developer directly within the IDE.
I think it's absolutely brilliant, and Micah actually kind of says this as well. He says, "I really enjoyed learning about the LocalStack or about LocalStack. English confuses me sometimes, so just stay with me if you can. The way it uses AWS profiles makes so much sense. I agree. I thought this was absolutely genius because when I kept saying to Perna, it has to be, I didn't know how. I did, I was like, I don't know how you're going to do it. But then when they came back and said, this is how it's going to do it, it's like, man, this is absolutely a genius way of doing that. And so super impressed with that.
Yeah, just to add, like on the profile piece, thanks, Micah, for adding that. Basically, what this profile piece lets you do is, it basically is a set of like configuration settings for your access key and region. But imagine that today with profile, you can switch between like different AWS accounts. Now, with the last week launch, you can create a LocalStack profile and you can switch between your local environment and your AWS cloud accounts. And when you switch to your local environment, which is your LocalStack profile, you basically are able to see all of your resources deployed to LocalStack in your IDE. So you don't have to do a whole bunch of context switching of going to LocalStack UI to view your resources. You can still stay in your IDE and see your resources, deploy your functions to LocalStack, etc.
All right. So
there's one more point.
Oh yeah, no,
there's
okay,
one
go
more
ahead.
point
Yeah,
to the profile. Thanks
Right.
for mentioning the profile, because the profile is just a starting point. Within your IDE, you can use it, but you can also use it within your other tool suite. You can use it with your LocalStack, with your AWS CLI, with your SAM CLI, and other tools from AWS natively. There you go.
Perfect. All right, we probably better get some code on the screen, or people are going to start throwing things at us. So, Joel, I'm going to share your screen. Is that cool?
Yeah. One more thing first. Kind of like the last piece that was missing from the launch is the LocalStack toolkit. So we'll dive into that in a second.
Okay.
But the LocalStack extension for Visual Studio Code was the last missing piece to make setting up LocalStack really easy and seamless from within your IDE. The user can stay within the IDE, and we set up LocalStack for you. That's it. And share your screen, and as we go through the demo, be ready to type your questions. Let us know what you think about the feature. What are the best bits? What are the parts that you want to see next? And we are looking forward to hearing your questions.
Sounds good. We've got some links that will be posted in the channels as well. Jeff, our producer's posted them, and I'll move them over to the YouTube channel as well. So, Joel, you got the floor.
Awesome. So here we are in Visual Studio Code instance. I have installed the latest version of the AWS Toolkit, launched last week. And we have the application builder walkthrough open. You can reach that via these three dots, the application builder walkthrough. It will walk you through and automate your installation of the AWS CLI, AWS SAM CLI, and the new part here is it will make it easy for you to install LocalStack, to emulate and bring the cloud experience to your local machine. Imagine the cloud running on your laptop at one click of a button away. So let's go, hit that button, and it asks me to confirm to install the extension across all my devices. I confirm, and I have a setup button ready. It will also detect here in the LocalStack status panel that currently the LocalStack or LocalStack CLI is not installed. So let's go ahead and run that setup wizard that does everything automatically for you. It downloaded the CLI. In case you have an existing installation, it will detect it and you're ready to go. I don't have it. I just uninstalled it for showcasing how easy it is. I install it for the current user only. Don't want to simplify entering not the sudo password. And authentication. So setting up the LocalStack authentication token to your LocalStack account is as easy as forwarding it to your browser. Maybe you don't have an account, and in that moment, we will ask you to create a free account without any credit card required. It's free. You can sign up and use these features for free. I have just created a free account before this demo, and it brought me to this logged in account, and it asks me to open the link. And what's happening now is it will transfer my authentication token for my free LocalStack account back into VS Code and set up everything for me. All right, open link. It will ask me to open and confirm within Visual Studio Code. It will finish, check the license, and there we are, ready to start. So we made that really easy, handle the cases where you have things installed, and I can hit start LocalStack. And LocalStack is boosting up, and we have the status here, LocalStack is running. So there we have it. You have your cloud running on your local machine. I can show you that it's really running. Here we can go to containers. We stay within the IDE, and here we can see the LocalStack is running as a Docker image. All right. Currently, we're running in LocalStack, and currently we're running and having the AWS toolkit connected to the AWS profile LocalStack sandbox. That's a real AWS account. If I go on the left side, I can see I have like a couple of Lambda functions deployed in my real account. And now I want to highlight and showcase on how easy it is to switch from being connected to AWS over to LocalStack. Look at this profile. I click here, and it will detect the LocalStack profile that the setup has automatically created for you. And you see this localhost.localstack.cloud. That's a host name that resolves to your IPv4, so it's connecting to your local machine, and LocalStack is running on port 4566. It's as easy as clicking that profile, and now I am connected to LocalStack. So you can use the functionality of the AWS toolkit directly integrated with LocalStack.
I think this is really interesting, and I just showed it up here, but someone said, oh, quite interesting. Most of the console web administration is now on my VS Code console. There is a lot there, yeah, a lot of that there. But I also think it's interesting that you have regions in LocalStack as well. And you'll probably say something to this, but I didn't realize that until I saw it the other day. I was like, oh, man, this is so cool. So what's with that?
Yeah, we basically emulate multi-region, and you can just try out different scenarios. It's much easier to test within LocalStack. You have one centralized area of log, but you can test multi-region, multi-account scenarios, and that's super easy and kind of like it. You can kind of, at first, you can think of connecting to LocalStack is like connecting to a different region. But as you said, it's not only one region, but it's basically a clone of the entire cloud. So you can choose whatever region you want.
All right, very cool.
So one thing I can demo this, now I'm connected to LocalStack. So let's open S3. And anyone ever tried to create a test bucket? Oh yeah, it's probably going to go well.
Yeah.
Imagine in the real cloud, this bucket name needs to be unique. In LocalStack, you don't need to worry about uniqueness, or you can if you use multi-account feature. So it's as easy. And just to highlight it again, let's see how easy it is. I can switch back to the real cloud. It refreshes everything. I can see my real cloud resources. I can go here and switch back to LocalStack at one click, and I'm running on my local machine.
All right.
So we've talked about profiles before. So give me 3 seconds to delete my real credentials. I just updated my profile. So I only have the LocalStack profile. And now without any real credentials, I can show you what this is.
Okay.
There we are. We have like a AWS profile named LocalStack. And the magic happens here. We have this endpoint URL that forwards requests that would usually go to amazonaws.com to localhost.localstack.cloud. It will connect to a local emulator.
Okay, so I want to call that out for a second. So there's several reasons why this is really important, and you're probably already saying this, but I'm going to say it as well, or I was seeing it is. So now it's not just, okay, I'm in VS Code and the plugin is taking advantage of that. It's also, okay, now I use a plugin, and let's say my ZSH. I use the AWS plugin. So I can use the command ASP to flip around profiles. So if I go to the LocalStack profile, I'm now calling my local endpoint because I've set this. That's really slick because there's a lot of different things that read these config profiles. Yep, there you go. So yeah, showing that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, which was briefly, Joel also mentioned, all of your AWS SAM and CLIs, you can also use the profile to point it to your LocalStack account.
That's beautiful. All right. So if in SAM I say, so I often set it in my same config file, but much like Joel just did, if you can set that profile, then I can use LocalStack. I mean, it really is a pretty transparent changeover.
Absolutely, and thanks for bringing it up. As you see here, I can use the AWS profile. It's also available as an argument -- profile. With my AWS CLI, I can list my buckets, and it will show me this bucket, and it will give me exactly the same responses as against real AWS.
Look
and
how
the
fast.
credentials are really easy.
Yeah. All right. So you just throw in, okay, just to test credentials. Got it.
All right. So you mentioned SAM before. So let's have a look at an application and deploy that in LocalStack. All right. I have in the application builder, I have prepared a SAM application, and let's use the infrastructure composer. Let's use the features that the AWS Toolkit provides to give us a visual overview of how this application looks like. We have a serverless application with a processor Lambda function, and that Lambda function is subscribed to a processing queue. So it's a SQS queue, and whenever I put an entry into the queue, an event source mapping will be pulling from that queue and invoking the Lambda function. That latter queue is not really relevant in our example. We can look at the details of the Lambda function. It's a Python function, and one thing to highlight is here, this function has a timeout of 3 seconds. I deploy it in the cloud or in LocalStack, and after 3 seconds, it will time out. And let's keep that in mind when it comes to debugging a Lambda function. Some people might be really fast in debugging, but 3 seconds is going to be tough.
That's a good call. Good call.
All right. So yeah, without further ado, let's open the panel of this SAM application. And as you said before, we could use the AWS SAM CLI, SAM deploy, and give it the profile LocalStack. But even better, we have a direct integration into the IDE. You can deploy the SAM application. Let's say I want to deploy it, use the default values for my SAM config, and now it's activating the environment and deploying the resources directly against LocalStack. So LocalStack is running, and the application is deployed. I can refresh here, and I've seen that already one update is here. We've seen an S3 bucket appear. We can peek into that S3 bucket, and that S3 bucket contains the YAML-based SAM template, serverless application model template, for that Lambda function. Here we recognize the Lambda function handler, Python function with our 3 seconds timeout. Now it's successfully deployed. So we have deployed a full CloudFormation stack against LocalStack. We can also use CDK, Terraform, whatever we want. We refresh here, and we can see our Lambda function appears in the Resource Explorer. All right. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Joel. Can I use SAM Sync against LocalStack?
Absolutely. SAM Sync will use the regular AWS endpoints in order to deploy the application. It might be even a tiny bit faster than CloudFormation. So that works as well.
All righty. I'm getting some kind of, apparently my power is done on my laptop. So you keep going. If I drop, you all keep going.
All right. So yeah, we have the application deployed, and we can explore the resources within our IDE without going out of the IDE context. Sometimes we are used to the AWS console, and LocalStack provides something similar. So I want to go briefly out of the IDE context just to show that it's also possible, and also showcasing that we really deployed the full application and not just emulated a single Lambda function. So let me open my browser, and here we have the dashboard of LocalStack. So the LocalStack web application on the left side, it shows me similar to profile, it's connected to localhost.localstack.cloud. So this is similar to an AWS console, but it's connecting to my local running AWS cloud powered by LocalStack. I can see what resources did we deploy. So remember, we had 2 SQS queues and a Lambda function. So we can go into SQS and we can see we have 2 queues here. We have a DL queue and we have the processing queue. So we can open the processing queue and go to messages and go to messages, and currently there are no messages in the queue. And once I send a message, then I should be able to hello serverless office hours. I should be able to send a message that then triggers the queue. Queue doesn't exist, did I? So that briefly checking is still running. All right, let's double check in the IDE. Give me a second. So we have the right Lambda function. We have the right queue. Let me try this again. I'll send a message. Hello, serverless office hours v2. And I can send this message. Okay, now it worked. So I entered a message in that queue, and remember the architecture, it should pick up this message and actually execute the Lambda function. So let's move back into the IDE, and I can see another container is running. So I have this Lambda container, and I can have full access. I can inspect the logs, and I can see that it did process my hello serverless office hours v2 message. So it's a fully fledged like serverless environment, including SQS event source mappings, triggering that Lambda function.
Holy cow! So the LocalStack invoked the actual Lambda container so it's the same ones we use in SAM. Is that correct? That's crazy.
Yeah, so the LocalStack container spawned another container in order to serve that request, and LocalStack itself pulled that SQS queue where we enter this message. So the full end-to-end application is testable on your local machine.
Okay, but the point I'm driving at is, and I think this is really, really cool, is rather than reinventing the wheel, you're making use of the containers that already exist and are already out there to do this. We do have a really quick question here coming in. Do we need Docker installed locally for this to happen?
Yes.
Correct. At the moment, yes. We do have other targets. So there is a Kubernetes executor we have the ability to deploy LocalStack on Kubernetes and also spawn other Kubernetes containers. But at the moment, Docker is powering main, and I think you can also use some Docker alternatives that work to some extent. That we were looking into improving the support. But currently, it's mostly assuming that you're having Docker running in the background.
Okay. So I want to take a few moments real quick. I know you probably have more to demo, and I think, Peter, you're going to show something real quick. But I do want to go back to our earlier question, because as we're getting in, I'm seeing a lot of services, we're emulating, and a lot of things are happening. Now, there was the question about the community edition. What version are you using right now?
Currently, this is using a freemium tier. So this is using a free version. So everything I've showcased is available as a free version. You got to sign up for an account. And here you can get a glimpse overview over the different, I think we have now over 120 different services emulated on LocalStack. And some of them are grayed out. They're in different tiers. you can check out our documentation for detailed coverage.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's what it is. I did want to clarify that because we had some questions going on. So thank you for that. So we do have a free tier or community edition. Let me use the right terms. Community edition, that's going to have a lot of services, and then you can see others are added in. What's really fun, if I'm understanding right, then SQS, SNS, API Gateway, are those part of the community?
Correct. I think API Gateway has different versions, but kind of like the base version, SQS and SNS, Lambda has a lot of features in the community tier. There's one feature, Lambda layers, that are available as crowding community tier, but there's a lot available.
Okay. All righty. So yeah, you can do a lot in here, and then we've got Brian Rinaldi said the community edition equals open source and free. Is that a correct statement?
So yeah, Brian is our DevRel lead. So community edition equals open source, and then we have like what we call free tier or freemium tier. What is required for this next feature that we're showcasing is that you have an account that at LocalStack, you have a LocalStack authentication token that gives you a couple of extras on top of the open source version that is available in our open source repository with, I think now we are 60K plus stars. So
okay, great.
If I could just jump into that. I mean, the reason we have a free tier and we encourage people to sign up for the free tier is it gives us the ability to expose you to some of more advanced features. And that's what I'll show later on if we have time. Some of the premium features that you can pay for, we will give you limited access to those features so you can try them out and maybe even use them if they're sufficient for you. The community edition won't have those. But so that's why we encourage you to sign up for the free plan.
All right, so it's worth signing up and getting a token. It's still going to be it's still going to be free at that point, but it's worth signing up and getting a token. So you heard it here. I would encourage you to do that. It's kind of like what we do with our Builder ID. We do a lot with our Builder ID that gives you access to things, but it helps us communicate with you as well. So excellent.
And it's definitely worth signing up for that because the next feature is available through that free tier. And let's move on to Lambda debugging. That's where it gets excited for Lambda developers. So there are two entry points to this feature. Either you've used AWS CLI or CDK or Terraform or whatever, and your Lambda function is available in the resource browser, and you can find the Invoke Remotely button here or via right-clicking Invoke Remotely button. If you're using the SAM model, AWS SAM model, you can go down to the Application Builder section. You get an overview of the application resources, and you can see our Lambda function, our processor function down here. And then I would recommend to go and click this Invoke Remotely button here. I'll show you in a second why. So let's close the left window for a minute. And here we can see a panel, remote invoke configuration. And what this gives us some metadata about the Lambda function. What we know is that that function reacts to an SQS event. So we can select the sample event from SQS. And let's just test it out. Let's just invoke that function. And we can see that we get this hello from SQS is part of the body. So that function prints hello from SQS. And we can just do this a couple of times. And this invoke will be served by this Docker container that is running the Lambda function on the side of LocalStack. So that's a regular invoke. It gets now really exciting once I want to debug the function. I want to have more control on how can I debug it? How can I really find errors and bugs, or why is this variable like this in that Lambda environment? And it's as easy as clicking this single remote debugging button toggle. It automatically detected where my application.py is. Let me move it to the side. Clean up the panels a bit. So on the right side, I have now my remote invoke configuration panel with all my configuration. And SAM has already pre-populated where my handler file is located. I typically recommend have a look at this open handler link If I click this link and it jumps to the application.py, to the right function, then you're good to go. All right, so I've just clicked one button. Here you can see at line 11, I have a breakpoint. I'll just click in the gutter here to set a breakpoint. So this Lambda handler, simple function, if there's an event, it will iterate over all the records and it will just print the body of the record. We have seen that live as an invoke, but let's remote invoke it with debugging enabled and see what happens. So it sets up a debug session. In the background, it spawned a debug-enabled container. And here we are. We have full access to all the powers of an interactive debugger. We can play, we can step over, step into, step out, and that's really giving us a lot of superpower. We can inspect all the variables on the side. How does the context look in a Lambda function, which makes it much easier to work and iterate on hard bugs.
So one thing that really stands out to me, because I could somewhat do this if I configured my local developer and I ran the SAM local debugger and I attached and I did all that, but I couldn't do it in the context of an invoked Lambda function from a service like you've done here. So you've done SQS to invoke the Lambda, or you're seeing the event and different things like that. It's just amazing. It's just really cool how you've done this.
And I can also go to the debug console and use all the power of the debugger, so I can inspect how does my record body look like, and it's currently having the message hello from SQS, and we can change that to hello from serverless office hours, and we can edit, we can live code, update the code, and let's just we can step over, continue the execution, and the output is now returning the modified version. So we have full control, and it's so easy to set up for Python, Node.js, and Java. Just click that button and everything will be set up for you. And if you want to do another session, just invoke again, and there you go.
That's cool. All right, I'm sorry, and you are invoking correctly, so. Yeah. All right.
And just a quick call out there. So so this was all about local, but a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, it's been actually a month, a little over a month now. We launched this thing called remote debugging, where you could actually use the same tools to debug a function that's running in the cloud. So now this essentially closes the loop in that you can do it locally against your local stack environment, or you could hook directly into the. There's no excuse for not debugging your function if things are not working.
That's right. There's no excuse for checking it before you push it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing it up. It's kind of the experience of debugging local or in the cloud is the same. It's the same code path. It's in the same integration in the IDE. It's so easy. You can also add some extra options if needed. And one extra thing that's also supported against the cloud, if I want to change something. So think just about let me just make a small change to the function. If I can get it right, I'll just add a print statement. It's kind of let's say starting. So make your modification. And even more interesting, let's add a print statement in it. I added a print statement outside the handler function. Why is this relevant? It detected a code change. On one button click, I can upload the archive to Lambda, and it will be updated in a second. And now I can have a breakpoint set on that init and on that starting. And let's have a remote invoke is in progress. Let's disconnect and stop the debugging session and reconnect. And that allows me to debug my cold starts. So you have a code path where cold starts are handled. And if I look into the containers, it is spawned like a debug-enabled container that is separate from the container that handles regular invokes. That makes it much easier to debug your cold starts. And also coming back to the 3-second timeout, remember, that is lifted. LocalStack automatically configures it for you, so you can extend your debug session even beyond the 15 minutes that you're limited in the real Lambda environment for getting all the performance and all the scalability. So I would love to have 6 to 7 minutes. Okay, then I think that's the last piece to present here. It's like, yeah, if there are any other questions, then I'd like to hand it over and back to Eric.
We're doing. Let me go back to this question really quick here, and then I want to come over to Peter just to kind of close the loop on this. Albert Code's asked. This goes back to the earlier question: do I need to have Docker installed? You do not install Docker. Yes, you wouldn't say the extension. So was it already installed locally then?
Correct. Yeah, you might have noticed the whale at the top here. It was already installed locally.
Right. If you did not have it installed, it would have prompted you to install. There's a series in the toolkit that will actually prompt you to install the different things. So if you don't have it installed, it'll ask you to install it.
You can install here, and at latest, if you try to start LocalStack, it will give you a clear error. Or certain services actually work without Docker, so you can run SQS native services without Docker, but we do need. So if you run in host mode, but LocalStack itself runs into Docker. So kind of like when you try to start LocalStack, it will ask you to run Docker.
Okay, all righty. Okay, and I think that all right. Here we have another question here. I like this a lot. What is the advantage of this over using Python test frameworks to test the Python code directly?
You can test all your integrations. So this is not just about the code, right? This is about the application. You're testing your integrations. You're testing it against the programming model of Lambda and serverless. Whereas with the test framework, you will just test your code and perhaps the libraries and so on that you would have built it around. But this gives you a whole sort of, think of it as, how would you test your application? How would you integration test your application locally without pushing it to a staging environment or somewhere else?
Right. Yeah. So getting the end-to-end testing in place and getting the those different things. So it's not a replacement for that. It's also.
Yeah, your Lambda function interacts with other services, so it pulls in SQS records. It might write to S3 and other services, and you can test it end to end, and you have full control over your files. And you can find under var task, you can find your code, and you can run it in the actual model that it runs in Lambda with certain restrictions. Yeah,
that's great. All right, so now, Peter, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to your desktop if you're ready. I will give you all a heads up. We've got a hard stop at the top of the hour because they've got another show coming up. But are you ready to do that, Peter?
I want to do a bit of talking first and then switch to the desktop. Yeah, I just want to talk about. I want to talk about the future a little bit. By the way, welcome to Wednesday morning in New Zealand. The sun has risen.
Yes,
we're a truly global company. I just want to talk about some of the features that LocalStack already has that we are going to make available via the LocalStack toolkit, right? So they already exist. It's already in our documentation. You can go check it out. But I wanted to briefly mention a few things. So one discussion we just had is about directly invoking Lambdas. One thing we can also do, and we want to add it to LocalStack toolkit, is the ability to indirectly debug something. So if you had a Lambda listening to, say, an SQS queue or event bridge or an API gateway, you flow through a sequence of services and then you hit the breakpoint. So that's something we want to add in the near future. Hot reloading as well. We have our own hot reloading feature where you could, because the source code for your application and the emulator are on the same machine. Of course, when you change a source file, you can immediately reflect that in the Lambda function. You don't have to do anything. It will automatically be configured for you. So that's something we support today, but it's has to be manually configured. We're going to make it part of the LocalStack toolkit. I think Joel mentioned the Lambda timeouts. We just eliminate those so you can debug for as long as you want. You're not going to get killed after 15 minutes. Two other really super important features, and I'll talk about one of them shortly. I'll give you a demo of one of them shortly. The first one I want to mention is snapshots. Because we're an emulator, we have access to everything in our local machine. We can very quickly snapshot the state of the emulator. And this is a super powerful feature. So if I run my CloudFormation, I put everything in LocalStack, I can just say snapshot. I can save it in the cloud, which we call cloud pods. And then I can share that with my team members if I want to. So if I have a problem, I need somebody to debug, I can stick it in a cloud pod and some other developer can look at it. Or a platform team, for example, can set up an environment and share it for everybody else to use. There's lots of possibilities with snapshots. Again, it's a feature we already have today, but we're going to make it available in the LocalStack toolkit. Now, the final thing I want to mention, and I can probably do this in 2 minutes, is if you share my screen. This is what we call Event Studio. Now, this is something exciting. It's been around for a while. This is very similar to AWS X-Ray, except it has some more advanced abilities. For example, the ability to actually see the data as it flows through the system, and ability to see the errors that are happening. So I have already run a little simple application here, and I will zoom in so you can actually see the detail. I did a put events into an event bridge bus. And if I click on that, what I can see on the right-hand side is the data that I put into the event bridge bus. I can see that the event bridge bus has several targets. The next one is SQS. I click on the SQS node, and there I can see the data that goes into my SQS queue. So this is the output from the event bridge bus. Similarly, my Lambda is connected to SQS as an event source, and I can see the input to my Lambda function. And I can see the output of my Lambda function as well. Go on further, I talk to my Lambda function writes to S3, it talks to DynamoDB, and so on. Oh, this is interesting. I have an error. So what happened here? Well, okay, so I did a write to DynamoDB, but for some reason, the Lambda function that was listening to the DynamoDB stream failed. So I click on that. Again, I can see the input to my Lambda function on the right-hand side. And oh, here it is. Here's the error. So I get very easy access to the error that happened in my situation. Now, one really cool feature, my favorite feature, but I haven't demoed it here. Red dots mean that the Lambda function failed. But if I had a blue dot, that means that my IAM policy is wrong. So for example, if I had not set up the correct permissions for my DynamoDB stream, for my Lambda to read from the DynamoDB stream, if I deployed to the cloud, that would fail. Of course it would fail, and it would be quite a while to debug the problem. With LocalStack, with Event Studio, I'll get a little blue dot here, and it immediately tells me, sorry, you don't have the permissions to do this. This is what went wrong, and this is what you need to do to fix it. So this is, again, this is Event Studio. This is a feature that we already have in our product, but we are going to move this into LocalStack Toolkit. And that will be really amazing because you'll be able to take what Joel just demoed, debugging your Lambda function. You'll be able to flip to this view. You'll be able to go through and see exactly where your bug is because the data payload doesn't look right. You'll see Lambda errors. You'll see Lambda logs. You'll see IAM policy errors. All of those things would be possible in this. Okay, thank you very much. That's the future.
All right, so we got IAM policy is wrong button equals sold. So we like that a lot. So yeah, very cool. All right, that super cool demo. I appreciate that, and we're gonna need to wrap it up now. But real quick, I want to give a big thank you to Joel and Peter for joining us from LocalStack. Some really cool things building. I really love this partnership. This is a lot of fun for us. This is very, very beneficial to the serverless developers. So super excited about that. Sridhar, Purna, great to have you on. Sridhar, repeat, Purna, first time. Super glad to have you. Not the last, though, I'm sure. And keep an eye on this station. We've got more stuff coming. This is a show we do every Tuesday, same time, same place. And we'll be showing a lot of different things. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to to Jeff. Jeff, thank you very much. He keeps everything running. And we're going to say thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.